Welcome back, Noble Heroes. We return once again to Mythia, where our heroes find themselves in Garen shortly after speaking with Dom's soul, ghost, contained within the Trident necklace. We will resume with our characters momentarily, but first I would like to remind you that if you are enjoying our content, please give us a like and a subscribe. We really appreciate it. And remember, do try this at home. We will begin elsewhere in Mythia. Well, elsewhere on Ignos, I should say.
What's today's date? Thank you.
When King Josiah stepped forth from the portals to Garen, he was greeted by a battalion of guards and servants choking the ritual chamber deep in the bowels of the screaming fortress. A shrill cry rang out from a nearby torture chamber as he separated from his tattooed sages to be attended to by endless aides. With a casual wave of his hand, he dismissed the legion of armed guards as the portal closed. Their services hadn't been needed after all. He was refreshed by nearly a dozen attending hands, adding a hint of concealer under his eyes, renewing the coloring magic in his hair to keep the midnight black for another day or so, cleansing his hands, and casting every sort of detection spell upon him, and the others who went to Garen that his wizards could muster. The last thing he wanted after a day of humiliation was to allow those twits to send some manner of spy or magic with him. Shade was taken away to attend to her likely scar, left over from when Harper had sliced off her arm. Josiah thought that the scar's removal wasn't the only reason she would run from his presence. She had also been an embarrassment. He was ready to consider the extent of her elaborate psychological punishment for the failure of her actions back at the summit. But duty called. He needed to carefully hone his words for the gathering that the elders of Farmwatch would surely call upon soon. King Josiah headed for the Black Throne. In an hour's time, he had arrived back across the city and was once again installed on the seat of power in Aragoth. The throne was made out of the same dark mithril as the crown, and even Josiah had to admit it was not to his tastes. When given the option, the human king preferred twisting symbols, intricate carvings, and large, imposing structures. The throne had none of those. It was a squat and plain seat with no adornments, made by a fate that he had taken for himself. But nevertheless, the throne was a symbol of power, and one that Josiah couldn't refuse to use. As his key advisors and ascended entered the throne room, Josiah greeted them with the same grim nonchalance that he would greet anyone. He was impatient for these tests and checks to be over. Rolling his eyes, he stood up and descended the steps to stand among them, raising his arms for inspection. Faded eyes with special gifts look upon him, checking his aura, psychic membrane, and other ethereal things that few even knew existed. He had called many of them from the population of his great city, and the others had been bred through his stable program. No mental penetration, a bald, wraith-thin man declared. So, a monstrous barging into his room hadn't been because they had been reading his mind. They must have had eyes inside the room itself. Your key remains undisturbed, a monastic monk stated, a ring of hair around his domed head. No mimics, a husky-voiced tiefling man stated after prodding him for a few moments. Among these many seers, one stood away from the rest, waiting for their checks to finish before approaching. The others made way for him, a very useful and hidden tool. This halfling could cast his sight back in time to view the unseen. Josiah had raised him from birth. He was a simpleton who was completely reliant on the Black King for every aspect of his life. He had been appropriately named Agar, which meant tool in the halfling tongue. Josiah and he would need to search his journey over his previous day with his fated aid to see more intelligence. To gather more intelligence. See the faces of his foes when he wasn't looking. Hear nearby whispers that only the unconscious mind could catch. Whatever had been in his potential view at any point could be scried with Ager's fate. "We must hurry. I suspect the elders will want their meeting soon," he said bluntly to Ager, who nodded and unfolded his hands from deep within the robe he wore. Josiah closed his eyes to soften the jolt as Ager placed his palms on Josiah's stomach. The two flew into the past. Josiah coldly directed Ager to the time and destinations he wished to check. He searched the suite room he and his sages had been placed in the citadel, and searched for a physical object that may have spied on him. It was a pity he could not use magic inside these memories, because he was sure that after their failed search, that whatever eye had seen his deeds was invisible inside the room. He would remember this insult. Next, he scraped over the summit to see all the snide smiles and shared glances. His foes thought themselves so in control. Moving forward, he had Ager freeze on the moment the gnome had punched him and study the faces of his gathered enemies. He was infuriated by the champion of Farmwatch. Gendra wore a dismissive sneer as he was struck. He saw the shock on most of the faces of the kings of Garen, which wasn't as bad as the sheer glee on the face of the halfling assassin, but it contained amusement on the face of the godmother. He had never seen this particular godmother before, and made a note to have her face drawn and catalogued under Juniper, important godmother leader, ? Trusted by the kings of Garen. "Move forward," Josiah said, still looking at the false face worn by this godmother. She had chosen quite a lovely form. After a moment's wait, Josiah furrowed his brows and turned, confused at the delay. He saw Ager looking at the chair next to the godmother. He was staring at the halfling assassin. Outraged at this act, Josiah twisted his face into mockery. "Is she pretty?" he asked, grasping her frozen face. Unable to move the memory, it felt as hard as stone. Ager suddenly started and blushed, hiding his face in the folds of his hood. He was a dull creature, as mindful as a child, and had never left the castle. He had rarely seen a female of his own species, but that was no excuse for daydreaming through his orders. Josiah moved forward and harshly struck the creature across the face, his royal ring cutting a bloody streak. "You would have my would-be assassin, Ager. She would literally tear your heart from your chest. She's done it to other lovers before. Even her own sister knows that she is a monster. She is a gutter rat and a thief, and I would sooner see you dead than put your gaze upon her face again."
So clearly the sentiments are mutual.
Josiah turned away, the stern tutor to his rowdy student. "Now move forward." This time the images before them shifted. Ample sweeping checks of dozens of scenes were done. Ager wouldn't meet Josiah's eyes. He kept patting his wound with a handkerchief to remove the blood. The two stopped on the final moments before he had left. As the scene moved forward by seconds, Josiah would search the surrounding hallways, but the area was simply too small to fit much else. He could only look down both hallways so many times before he grew bored and sped up the process. Ager had grown tired of this process an hour ago. He wanted nothing more than to return to the highest tower of the castle, where he could stare out at the far sea and watch the moon fly overhead. Some said a dragon lived there. The sting of his wound brought him back to the present, where he saw the memory of Josiah and his guards clutter up in the corner of a hallway, a defensive posture that kept the king safe from harm. Ager's eyes widened. There, between the thighs of his guards, Ager saw a small hand reach out from the gaps in the wall. It was the hand of the halfling girl he had seen in the throne room. He had been staring at her hands the whole time, not her face as Josiah had assumed. He had never seen hands like those on a halfling. He was used to hands being soft and smooth. Her hands spoke of a life that Ager couldn't imagine. They were cut and hard, stronger than any woman's hands he had ever seen, but they also looked nimble. like they could form shadows on the wall of his tower to tell a good story. They could creep into spiders and dragons. He had been thinking of that. A small smile edged at the corner of his mouth. He wouldn't say anything. Stopped looking at her hand dagger. His eyes flicked to make sure Jossia hadn't noticed, but he was filled with fear when he saw the king staring right at him. The human's eyes flitted downwards, but from his high height, he couldn't see the hand. He took a few booted steps over and knelt down, finally able to view the secret hand. He turned towards Agur, and the halfling's eyes were wide as tea saucers. He winced for the coming strike, but instead, Jossia smiled. Well done, Agur. It looks like the halflings aren't a completely useless race after all. You do bring a certain perspective. King Jossia chuckled at his own joke as he went closer to inspect the hand. What did this thief try to steal from me? Jossia's body suddenly went rigid. He saw the fingers not trying to pick his pocket, but entering through him like he were made of water. His eyes grew wide, staring at this event like it was Armageddon. The 3-inch wide hand was worse than seeing an army at Aragoth's walls. His mind began to race. He began to sweat. All his carefully kept secrets. How much could she know? Jossia normally sighed out of the memory experience, carefully climbing back to the world, but this time he ripped from it. Get me Pearl! Now! The throne room was almost empty when Pearl entered. She confidently strode across the floor and bowed low to her king. Jossia appeared thoughtful. She wondered what tact she should take. She knew he had just returned from Garen. Could he want to consult with her upon such an important matter? She was positively brimming with excitement. This was a new test for their relationship. Jossia looked down upon the conniving halfling, dressed up like a doll in her expensive dress. She looked like a child. He thought for a moment about giving her to Ace, wherever he was. He considered her record and weighed it against her failure. He stood. I am interested in discussing further plans to track down your sister. It seems the letter was unsuccessful. He took a few steps down the stairs as he spoke. Perhaps. It is possible she may be waiting until the holidays to scry me, in the hopes of catching me outside of my estate. I have already considered this, and a countermeasure for this action is already in place. I will use it to lure her deeper into the net. Don't worry, Your Majesty. I have considered every action. The unsettling chuckle that emerged from Jossia was alarming. Pearl stood rigid. You are good. Prim and proper. Vocals pleasing. The manners impeccable. But I wonder. Jossia became a blur of movement. Seeming to appear before the frightened Pearl, he lifted her by the neck and slammed her to the floor. I wonder if you have prepared for this, he roared. Pearl's eyes flashed. Fear took her. She grasped the hand, but couldn't dig her claws into it. The crown's leash wouldn't let her. She gasped. Everything was going dark. Her eyes began to roll. Then Jossia released her and stood. Your treacherous sister laid her filthy hands on me. She has stolen all my secrets and shared them with everyone who will listen, including every king across Ignos. Have you prepared for that, you simpering mule? Just as Pearl was climbing onto her feet, Jossia turned and swiftly kicked her in the nose, breaking her face. Pearl lay bloody and dizzy on the floor, frightened as a rabbit. Get out! You have 3 weeks to retrieve your sister from me, or you will know more pain than your stepmother when she died. Pearl stumbled to get up and fled, leaving a bloody trail on the floor. Tears of rage fell from her eyes as she ran down the many stairs. She ran to the coach and went immediately to the church for healing. In her intense pain, she replayed Jossia's face contorted in rage. There was no way she could catch Euphemia in 3 weeks. This was a game, a show. Unfortunately, Jossia still underestimated her. She had planned years ago for exactly this scenario. She just hoped that the cleric returned soon, or else she really was trapped as a bird in an ever-shrinking cage. We begin in the solemn aftermath of speaking with Dom's essence within the necklace of the trident. The room around you is fairly quiet as you return. There's some small talk going on away from where you three were gathered with Dom. Bali and Jania have rejoined that conversation. Jania, it seems, still has a mildly pink aura, like a small sun were exactly behind her back at all times, giving her a kind of hazy view, even when she sits in the chair. You can tell that she is furious and holding it back. Whenever she is told a joke or laughs, it seems to vanish for a moment. She's starting to hold it so much that it begins to look strange when it's not there. Hero is looking nervously in Jania's direction. Can I hear what Isaac and Juniper are up to, please?
What your paper?
I fucked up.
Don't say that.
I gave her really ripped paper. I tried to rip it out of a notebook, but it
It's
didn't
kind
go
of
well.
awesome. Would you like some non-ripped paper?
I asked her if she
I
wanted
love
some.
it.
Give her that one. Give her a good one.
She says she's fine. I'll get it to her when she runs out.
Isaac.
So this is after we all were having drinks, right?
I would say that those of you who are into drinks still have enough left to sip at.
Okay. I'm trying to remember exactly where we left off.
Prongor is going to hand a full whiskey to you again. Here you are, master. The cabinets here in the Citadel are quite excellent, he says.
Thank you, Brongor. Feels like it's going to be a long night tonight.
How about Juniper?
June, in respect for the drinkers of the group, has gotten a tiny thimble-sized thing of some very nice port. A very sweet type. And is sipping at that.
Are we at June's house still, or I forgot
We're,
where we
we're
were?
all in the...
Citadel.
The Citadel.
We are in the Citadel?
Okay.
I'm almost sure.
Wait, no. Is this... Hold
I thought
on.
we were in June's
Yeah, I
house.
think we're in my house because I believe she said she wanted to talk to everybody since we were going to do this get-together thing, and she said that we need to talk in private.
Is
I
Harper here?
remember
Yes.
the furniture magically adjusted.
Yes. This is definitely my house.
Okay, so we are in Juniper's house and all of Harper's crew's here?
Yeah. Okay, so, yes, okay.
I remember this now,
All
too.
of my drink, yeah, okay. I remember this now. Everybody has their favorite drink.
Yes.
Exactly what they wanted. All right. Thank you for saying that.
Isaac, as Prongor hands you a whiskey, he's going to take a port over and give it to Opt. And Opt is going to kind of turn, like, surprised a little bit, looks down at it and says, how'd you know? Prongor is going to say, you mentioned it in our last conversation. And he's going to hand it over to him, and he kind of gives a nod of thanks.
I also want to say that Prongor is, if you watch him move, he's a very adept bartender because he's done that in the past as part of like our crew before I joined this group.
I would just like to point out, because when I said it, you just reach in and it's already pre-made. It's kind of like,
Oh, it's like in a glass, ready to drink.
yes, it's like you reach in and you get exactly what you wanted to drink.
Oh.
So
okay.
Prongor is pretending he made it.
That's fair. That's acceptable. I can definitely see that happening.
Okay. Harper's going to, like, shoo away Bali, who's brought back a second drink for him, and she's going to kind of shrug and walk over towards Euphemia and hand over the shot, which was small for Harper, but is quite the shot for
Yeah.
June. All right, June, you were saying?
I wasn't saying anything.
What are you doing?
I'm drinking.
Drinking what?
Well, she has her big cup of hot chocolate that is piled with all kinds of delightful things. for her, not for everybody else. It's probably gagrific for everybody else. But and she also has a small, like, little delicate glass cup of port. It's probably the only time you guys have seen her drink alcohol.
Faylene is going to look over towards Red, who has a shot that he hasn't touched. And she's going to say, Red, could you give me a glass of water, please? He's going to get up, and you don't know what the point was until Red, over at the sink, is going to like pull up his hood and take the shot back and then put it back down, kind of drop the glass in the sink. Then he brings back the water, and Faylene doesn't touch it. He's in there? Harper asks.
Yuffie nods once.
I can't feel him, Hero says.
It might be the power of the item itself.
It's tightly coiled. Most powerful items are, he says, looking at it.
I don't think there's a way that I can get him out. Not with my power.
To my eyes, looks like something is trying to get out. But not him, certainly. I've cut things like that before. Usually they wind up exploding. I think there's a great deal of power hidden behind those cords. Enough that I would be wary about it.
So would I.
We can look in the archives in the Citadel and try to get some information on it. Or maybe our resident godmother might know something about it.
June?
So, he seems to be stable. Harper continues to ask you from you.
He's handling it pretty well, considering he's in this bizarre enclosed space with no opportunity to escape. So,
You're going to see a weird kind of like almost understanding nod on Opt as he kind of looks across the thing, and Red's going to immediately look towards Opt as though some past event rings as a reminder to them.
she might notice it, but she won't comment.
Faylene is going to say, my father is an enchanter of some great skill, world-renowned. Perhaps if we have our near Dremel, we might be able to stop in and allow him to take a look.
Trying to remember where Dremel is.
South of the
It's
Enchanted Forest, north of the
over
Sky
there.
Range.
It's right next to
So-
the Emerald Lake.
Like the other side of the earth right now.
Okay. But close to the Sky Range-ish.
Continent, not Earth.
Yes. If you guys ported to the Doom Ridge and headed up to Cross, you would be several days, at least to go 2 weeks probably from Dremel.
No, that's incorrect.
Huh?
If we port to Cross and then we continue that direction, we would do it. If we ported directly to the Doom Ridge, we would actually be closer to where he is.
Right, but you need to get to the Sky Range.
Yeah, you just go up through here. Go up the river. All else fails.
Through Cross.
No, Cross is one river over.
You're talking about going through the foothills? That was the way you came.
Yes.
The very dangerous way.
That's where the teleportation circle is.
Right, it's on the south end of the Doom Ridge.
Yes, but it's still further to the bi-directional sense sucks to the east than Cross is.
Is that where
I
the
was
time
assuming you
step
guys
is?
were going after the giants, like, if then any Dremel activity would happen, which you
Yes.
guys have agreed to go to
Yes.
Cross for.
I stand by if we were taking the teleportation circle, it would technically be closer.
Yes,
don't
I mean, if you want to go directly to Dremel for a chance.
No, it's also closer to the giants.
No, it's not. The giants are on the north side of the Sky Range up near the Crystal Lake right now.
Oh, so are they like right?
Yeah, they're in
Crystal
that area.
Lake?
They're near the Crystal, like that part of the forest.
Okay, sorry. When you said it originally, I thought they were closer to the Emerald Lake.
No, they are not.
Okay,
They are traveling through the area right around Cross right now.
so they're closer to
Okay,
Nivea.
so they're like right.
They are,
there.
yes.
Okay.
Okay.
They are like slightly to the west of Nivium.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Gotcha then.
Okay, then yes, I agree. Now that we've gotten the actual locations down.
Harper will share reports that Garen has gotten about their activity. They're north of the Sky Range, near the south of the, what is the bottom jungle called? The Vines, he says. He says they're traveling along that area, smashing villages.
I think we've let this linger long enough.
So, to the Doom Ridge then, and then we travel to the west and north to get to Cross, and then we try to find them in that area.
I think so. And Dremel after.
She's already stated that we can go directly to Cross.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Because what's-his-face wanted to go there early, and I said no.
That's right, through the Godmother
That's
headquarters.
right.
I forgot that you would open that up.
And it's the other reason we specifically talked about here instead of elsewhere.
So, does anyone want to bring up any more stuff while you all are in this room? What do we all need as supplies? I can put in a requisite with the Citadel.
I need to pick up my gloves. She looks to the crew. Do you all need anything in particular?
Bali is going to turn and say, you said there was some kind of mechanical machine we needed to pick up? Towards Isaac.
Yes, I believe I found a better mode of transportation for us to get to those giants. I'd like to go take a look at them. And whoever wants
I'd like
to come
to
help
join you,
gets
actually.
to ride one back.
June had cut in. She says, I would like to join you.
Thalen's going to say, I just thought of a potential problem with your plan to bring Orega in. Were we going to use your teleportation pad, or were we going to use the Citadel's?
If we're going to cross, mine would be more appropriate. You needn't worry of his size.
I was only concerned that the Citadel would take away any enchantment upon him. Magical guards would not allow a shrunken person to enter.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry, I didn't know where she was going with that. Yes.
Well,
She shrugs.
if that's not a problem with your place, then I guess he can come to ride with us. Where is he?
Last I saw him, he was in the meek quarters, but he was being tended to.
I'm sure he won't be difficult to find, Harper says. I think he's been all around the city in the past few days. I heard he was sleeping in a warehouse somewhere. Red is going to say, some of the local kids told me that he made a statue for the golden goose. A statue? Harper asks. He goes, yeah, in trade for some drink.
Must be some statue.
Well, apparently he's just able to wave his hand, isn't he? He controls bronze.
Oh, sorry, forgot. Out of game.
So what can you tell us about giants?
Bleh. She says a lot of stuff. Your choice to give that out.
Roll a check to determine what sort of knowledge you share.
What sort of knowledge I share?
Is she able to give like weaknesses or customs or
It's going to depend on what she rolls.
roll well, roll really well? I have nothing about giants.
What type of check, please?
Depends on you. What type of check do you want to roll, and or what type of information you want to give?
I guess intellect?
Um,
She's giving factual information about giants.
Okay, intellect would be like their heart rate and like their size and their metabolisms and stuff like that, like biological information.
Why?
Because that's the type of knowledge that intellect would give you.
Why wouldn't it give you knowledge of their culture?
That's history.
Fine, I guess history. I mean, it's basically the same, to be honest. So. Okay, we'll just take my regular one. So 19.
All right. You are able to give a great deal of information about the giants. Giants were much more common back during the prior Dragon War times. In fact, there was like 6 or 7 large settlements of giants. Now there are basically only 2 remaining. One much more sort of savage tribal culture in the very south in Hugh, the island. Giants with significantly less magic and potency. And then there's the ones in the Sky Range who have sort of kept their prior learnings, technology, and traditions, but sort of been isolated from the rest of the world for as long as you can remember, honestly. They appear, at least by Aurega's standards, to have not...
Fight with dragons?
They fought with dragons during the Dragon War, which is why they're mostly dead.
Gotcha. Yeah, I thought I remembered that. Sorry, that was an out-of-game thought. That ever doesn't come up. Do you want a sweater?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Giants have a caste system based on a very structured rule system, with people like Aurega being at the top of that caste system and possessing the mystical items of their glorious past. But those at the bottom are sort of really no better than just like giant warriors. Wielding rudimentary weapons. They don't get the forgings or the powerful tools of the nation. But they do have a warrior culture about them and are always ready for battle. The ones in the Sky Range are self-isolated, but now are almost... It is difficult for them to descend without great numbers because they are basically next to the Doom Ridge and don't know much about the way of the world currently. So when they do wind up descending, they make
like really big yokels.
Yeah, they make a really big mess when they descend because they don't understand the stuff they're destroying or the things that will poison them or the dangers of the enchanted forest, stuff like that.
That's terrible.
So thankfully they went north of the Sky Range instead of south. So there were settlements there.
Yes. They could go all the way south to Aragoth. Have fun, guys.
And give me one last check. DC 24 Arcana. Okay. You are additionally able to share that giants' fates tend to be elementally based. The ability to control fire or wind or water. Like Aurega's ability to control lightning. If they are ascended, that tends to be where it goes. Either that or it's like an event fate where they're going to do something big and it's going to have like a fated effect. That's where you get a lot of the descenders, that they're fated to travel or something like that, and they come down.
Mm-hmm. We probably pay a lot of attention to those because they're the most troublesome, which would explain why we know that.
Yes.
She says yes. Those are the troublesome ones.
They all sound like they're going to be a bit of trouble.
I've fought with a giant before. And even the weakest of their species are strong enough to kill a platoon of men. I would say that an army gathered together like this, even our gathered force, isn't going to be enough to take them on directly. We're going to need some other method.
I think we cut off the head.
The question is whether we can get to the head to cut.
I think we could sneak our way in.
Yes, I was about to suggest perhaps theft would be the more appropriate route.
Theft?
Retrieve the portion ourselves.
Thought he was wearing it.
Does he wear it while he sleeps?
I don't know.
Exactly. We need to find that information out.
Who do you propose we get the information from?
Well, once we get close enough, we'll be able to spy more easily.
You think somebody's watching the giants sleep?
We could scry them,
Oh, scry them.
or
Like the spell.
send in spies. She gestures at Isaac.
Red's gonna kind of come back over.
Or she looks at him and she goes, "Oh yes, or this."
Or this. He's a this.
Says, at a giant vantage point, they're going to see Red coming from a mile away, and he'll get a rock to the face.
Not if he's invisible.
Red's gonna kind of like, man, really? You got a hammer and everything looks like a nail, huh? Magic. He goes like that.
I mean, there are cloaks that can do it. Spells.
You happen to have one? A cloak?
I could probably acquire one easily enough.
Well, that would certainly be helpful. Why don't you have it on?
Why would I bother when I could simply do this? She casts invisibility.
Phaline's going to say, okay, I think both of you have proven your points, she says.
She shrugs it off.
How far is their vantage point exactly? A giant, how far can they see?
Well, it depends on how tall they are and how high they are.
They vary
and if
fairly
they have
widely
good
in
eyesight.
height, Harper says. I think the largest tends to be about Aurega size, with significant numbers below that.
Could they see me
Generally
traveling?
speaking, Aurega would be the height, the tallest height. He's a storm giant, right?
Mhm.
Yes. Storm giants are generally the largest.
So Storm Giant is just a cast type in
Oh,
this
yes.
world.
Oh, so they're not also
They're not breadth
physically
like
largest?
that. They do happen to be generally physically largest, but not all of them are.
Well, yes, but she's going to say generally that's the biggest ones.
Okay. I
And
just
Aurega's
wanted to
pretty-
distinguish. They're
Yeah.
not like born into a specific lot in this one.
Gotcha. But Aurega is a pretty good specimen of his type, yes?
Yeah, you'd say he's definitely the ideal physical specimen.
Yeah,
of a
she
giant.
says, generally speaking, they're all going to be shorter than Aurega. Basically. Basically.
Would they catch me transporting between shadows?
She gives you a look as she glances down at what you're carrying and she goes, that may not be the best of plans, but doubtful.
Well, hang on. The shard is a crown that he
Wait.
wears on his head, right? It's got to be huge. We're going to need a whole team.
We also have a dragon that can go into the shadow realm.
Even Shadow's not big enough to carry the shard.
But it would be possible if she had somebody with her.
He says, and if she fails,
Then she slips back into the shadow realm and then we go into plan 2.
and what's that?
And then we attack. She probably had other plans, but I can't think of them right now. Sorry.
Harper seems annoyed at this.
What do you suggest?
Help.
What kind?
I don't know. See where they're headed, get to the town in front of them, and try to fortify it.
Lay a trap, perhaps?
If a trap is big enough to hurt them. More like prepare for siege warfare.
Do we know how many giants there are yet?
By Aurega's count, like 250.
Significantly more than I had in my vision in my brain. See, in my head, I was thinking, maybe like 30, which is a pretty big amount for giants. Okay, this does make a difference in how I would plan for this. Thank you for saying that.
I didn't realize that either.
Yeah, okay, so let's back up just a smidge now that we remember that there's an actual significant amount. See, this is what happens when we have games every month. Tiny details.
Well, I don't think we'd ever actually mention how many giants there were out of in-game.
I think you're right. See, because I don't remember that at all. Okay, so who has seen them? Has anybody seen these giants?
There have been survivors from the attacks that have reported roughly their movements, but they're killing everybody that they find that is big enough for them to kill.
Okay, so this is more than just like random pillaging.
Yes, this is distinct genocide.
Okay.
Jesus.
So this is actually a lot more serious than in my brain was thinking this was.
Yeah, they're not stealing anything. They're just eating everything.
So they're like locusts.
Yes. And then they're crushing all the town into little wood shards.
Giant locusts. Okay.
Do we know if the leader is present during the battles, or does he stick behind?
Reports say that there's 3 oversized giants, one taller than the others, and one with a lightning bolt. I think that's their king.
The
He
lightning
wears the stone wrap on his head. Apparently, he's using something like a turban to keep it on.
Interesting.
There's a very fat one that stays with him. And then
The bodyguard?
probably his son. And then another much meaner looking one. Those 3 are reported to lead the charge.
Are giants known for being terribly loyal to their biological kin?
More so than any of us.
I have another out-of-game question that's important to know.
Mhm.
What do I think generally happens if their leader goes down?
Probably something like a bloody rampage.
Then they just rampage. But they're already rampaging. It's already a bloody rampage.
Be a disorganized rampage.
Would they respect it if...
Let's say like right now it's like a structured parade. And after the king dies, it's more like a mosh pit.
What if we could... We need Orega to retake control, and the only way he'd be respected to do that would be to fight the current king, I assume, right?
Is there anything in their culture that allows for a trial by combat?
There is,
Okay.
yes. 2 powerful giants of similar rank can vie for dominance over one another. Something like an Agni Kai from the Fire Nation. But the king has to accept.
He doesn't look weak if he refuses.
Maybe, but he has a at least solid enough claim with the crown shard and whatever prophecies he's been spilling in order to throw Rager out in the first place.
I have a question. How... Okay, can Shadow drag people into the Shadow Realm?
Yes,
Like,
large or smaller people,
But not super, super large.
not huge. Huge
are
is the size
all
of
of
all
the
giants.
Okay.
Unless they are the tiniest giant ever.
What if
Or
they
if you
got
polymorph
polymorphed?
them.
If you
Yeah,
polymorphed
so-
a giant and then sucked it in, that would probably work.
Okay.
It's an interesting...
But I think if you polymorph the giant in the first place, you have a pretty significant advantage
Oh,
over
yes,
him.
no, I wasn't actually thinking about him specifically. I mean, I was, but like... So, he has a son, you said?
The guess is that he has 2 sons. Orega spoke actually originally when he met you guys about the 2 sons helping the father cast him off the mountain.
Does he seem to care for the sons?
That's
is the
what she was
question.
asking about that.
Um,
She was thinking that could be his weak point. That he
Yes,
might
and that's
act.
why I was thinking if we steal the sons...
that's a
Yes.
question for Orega.
Yes.
You know, you haven't asked about
Yes,
them
I
before.
think that we need to bring Orega into these chats if we're going to continue with this.
Might need a bigger house, Harper says. That one apparently is a joke.
She pauses and she goes, funny.
Red's gonna like, real knee slapper. Okay, so when do we leave?
Wait, out of game. Wasn't there? Didn't we set a date when we were leaving?
I thought we did, but I don't remember.
I can't
now.
remember what it was.
Well,
It was
if you
after you did
did,
the funeral.
Yeah.
She goes, after Dom's funeral?
you're still having a funeral? Phelan asks.
We haven't decided, but I think it wouldn't be disadvantageous to let our enemies think they'd struck that blow.
Would it be disadvantageous to go through the motions of that grief, though? I don't think your enemies are going to be watching for a funeral.
I think it depends on the enemy, of course, but I don't know yours as well as others.
Calrock still has spies in the city, I'm sure, but how closely they're watching, I don't know.
It would very easily be possible to spread the rumors that a funeral did happen without actually going through the motions of one. A private funeral in the Citadel that doesn't allow anyone beyond the party.
I think that would be best.
I can discuss it with... I'm meeting with some of the kings tomorrow.
Do you know if there's any updates on the tradesman who sold the tea?
We've found the stall that was used, was rented for several days. I assume after the tea was sold, they gave up the rental and then fled. They're chasing them down. They've gone north to Gantharin. Gantharin? Hero
I needed
says.
to do.
Why to Gantharin?
Probably because it's the nearest civilization beyond the Halfling Hills, and you can't hide out easily among a bunch of halflings if you're not short.
So it's not a halfling.
Can't really hide out a bunch of them. Wait, isn't that a meek area?
It is, yeah, but it's like a part of a road that heads north onwards
So
to
there are a
other
lot of
larger
taller races
cities.
as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where travelers from
among a bunch of meek?
that's where travelers from
Right.
Selenox and traders would come through.
How close are they to gaining on him?
I imagine that within the next 3 days they'll probably catch up with him if he doesn't take off in some wild direction. Or
Is he
doesn't have a
Twitch?
boat waiting for him somewhere along the path.
That's more likely.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do they have anything to do with the ones who sold, the ones who conned Hero's cousin?
You don't believe so? No.
Okay. Because I would have looked into that because I'm currently searching for them. I knew I had something I was planning to do. Thank you for saying all this.
You don't believe the two are related.
Okay. Just checking, you know. Okay, continue.
So, why don't we try to take care of all of our business in a short period of time?
Let's leave tomorrow.
Is there anything we can't finish tomorrow afternoon and then head out by the night? We can be in Gantharin by sundown, Phelan says. Or Gantharin. We can be in Cross by sundown.
Euphemia looks to Bali and Jania. We've some business to attend to, but I think we can wrap it up by then.
Especially if we split it among us, Polly says. What business? Johnny asks.
She says, later.
Is that good for you?
My
Red
presence
says.
isn't necessary for my doings.
All right.
She's
Go
like,
team.
That's giving them way too much credit if I personally look into this. Bastards.
Red's gonna kind of like, go team.
Is there someone who could scry the person on the run from the stall? I forgot.
We're only going by vague descriptions of him. Bearded, semi-overweight human man.
Do you still have the tea?
We have its remnants.
Do you have the container?
Yes.
Bring it to me. Later. You don't have to do it at this moment.
Could you scry from that?
As long as he touched it, I should be able to at least get some superficial connection. Assuming there are not safeguards on him already. There are ways to stop people from scrying you.
Right.
All right. So, Thaleen will discuss with the kings, and they will have a private, quick, and fake ceremony, and get some rumors out that occurred.
She should maybe, be there. Or, be somewhere out of sight. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter. Just saying.
Whatever coordinations you need in order to make that work are going to happen. If you guys don't want to play it out, it's going to occur.
Yeah.
So, what all do you guys want to go personally through? We have Merowayne. We have the information about Pitt. The mono wheels I would like to play out in person. Roland's goodbye, of course, should be done in person. And then the new gloves.
I don't think she has to play out getting the new gloves, but she might want to play with them before they leave.
All right. You will find that your powers do not extend into the mage hands.
Damn it!
But they're very helpful, nonetheless. You find that the at-will mage hands are addictive for at least the first hour. You just pick up normal-ass things, but from far away.
Okay.
Just don't
Can she
annoy
practice
Jim too much with it.
throwing daggers with them and
that's
picking Pearl back up or picking daggers back up from a distance and everything like that?
So
Can you throw daggers with Mage Hand? Because that's ridiculously fun. Think about how it extends your range.
Yeah. Seriously.
when you get better with it, you can do that.
Okay.
For now,
She's gonna just be throwing stuff and just missing people.
at first you're trying to
Assuming
do
you're no longer at my house, right?
No.
You're trying to do the
Definitely
same
not.
thing that you
Okay.
did where you move your hands to make the hands move that way, but the gloves have been tweaked. So you just have to think about it and the hands will do the action. You don't have to move your own body in order to do it now.
Okay. I assume she would maybe do this at Harper's, that one place where he's
That's
got all the
way
stuff,
better.
training stuff set up.
She'd appreciate that.
I'm trying to destroy things.
I mean, we do have a workout room, but still.
Harper will
It's
vaguely
race,
suggest that
so-
the best arcane trickster that he ever saw was able to toss a dagger sort of quietly while wrestling or fighting with a party member or an enemy, and then use the mage hand to sort of backstab him. But he said that was after years and years of practice.
Euphemia tries to maneuver it and it fails abysmally.
Trying
He's
to-
like a genius. She'll figure it out soon.
Right now you have to kind of concentrate on making the hands do what you want them to adeptly, and if you're doing something else they kind of wobble and shake in the air and sort of move around randomly. All right, Juniper, what business were you going to attend to?
Well, she's going with Isaac to check out the mono wheels, but she also wants to do a final update with her own spies who are looking into the little annoying bastards.
So, in a very fine coach indeed, the two of you head off to the
I'm assuming it's 3, let's be honest.
3?
Prongor.
Yes, of course.
Prongor behind? June doesn't particularly want to bring him, but Sarah does.
Right. You guys are in a very fine coach, led by some very fine horses, traveling on the way to the Clockwork Mechanical Workshop. You get out to a very fine glass, see-through, at least the front, building. And you will see inside a rush of activity when the carriage pulls up. As the two of you get out, you're going to see 2 lines form of employees inside, forming a sort of procession-like line. And as Isaac, the door is opened for you by Prongor, you're going to hear, "Welcome, sir," said in like a perfect harmony between like 30 employees inside, and all of them are going to sort of like bow low to the ground for you. Very VIP treatment going on here.
Okay. Isaac walks to the threshold and then pauses and looks to the side as he waits for June to kind of like step up with him to enter.
The lead salesman and the man who spoke to you, sort of pitched you the prototypes, is going to quickly rush up towards the front down the procession line, and will walk up towards you and shake your hand very businesslike. He's very clearly excited about the experience. He says, Lord Crowley, welcome back. And who's this lovely woman?
An associate of mine. She's part of my investment.
He says, wonderful, we'll impress the both of you. Hurry, come.
That came out real weird. Sorry, just saying. Part of your
She's
investment.
a fellow investor.
Really?
That's what.
There we go.
Yeah.
I was like, that sounds a little shady.
Well, they do have a child together, so
We do. We have a non-love child.
Completely platonic family.
Exactly.
All right. As you guys follow this lead merchant, he's going to say, do you want any refreshments? We have some nice cucumber water. Take your coats. Or your robe, I apologize, he says. Your robe is sort of going to like wave in like a predator-like pattern as he states that.
I forgot you had that on.
Yeah. Well, it looks like a fine kind of like royal blue colored coat right now.
You're gonna see like a demon head appear at the bottom of it, like the tatters,
Yeah.
and like sort of like open its mouth wide, ready for consumption.
June looks down and kind of raises an eyebrow as she looks at it.
Isaac will kind of gently gesture for him to step back a bit, and he's like, no formalities tonight. May we see the product?
He says, we have done a bit of changes to the back mechanical room. Come, you'll see the track, he says. And as you all go back into this workshop, it is very clearly a very busy, very full place. It has a lot of machines being built and work tables with many tools about them. You see men and dwarfs, especially dwarfs, with like big leather gloves on, sort of casting spells upon a number of strange objects that catch your eye. But you begin to hear a noise coming from the back. And as you go through these double doors, you're going to see a makeshift track with a stack of crates in the center forming the ring. And you will see one of the prototypes. It appears to be a giant wheel with a metal casing around most of it. And the wheel is touching the ground, a very flat, I'd say maybe about 2 foot wide wheel. And you're going to see it appears to be driven by this pilot inside of it who has hold of these 2 little levers. And he's sort of like pulling them in such a way that the wheel begins to like turn around the track. And as you come in, you're going to hear it rev up with this vroom, and it's going to screech around the edge of the track, moving very swiftly and quite nimbly. He's going to say, the wheel has turned out even more wonderful than we could have imagined. The turning, the piloting, very smooth, extremely fast, and we've discovered that it's so nimble, in fact, that you can almost jump the thing. He's going to make like a thumbs up, and another guy who's sort of watching the procedure on the other side of the track is going to give like a hand sign to the guy in the wheel, who clearly has like trouble hearing because it's very loud. And he's going to like turn the 2 levers very quickly, and you're going to see the wheel like and do this very nimble, like S shape. He says, thing might be able to dodge a magic spell, perhaps, on the road.
June has a very minor smile as she thinks about it, and she goes,
The pilot, a very cool-looking halfling with slick back hair, is going to sort of like screech up in front of you guys and get out in his little pilot's uniform and like give like a salute. He says, "This is Dance Halfhilt. He's our best pilot, prototype or otherwise. And Dance, what do you think about it?" And he's going to say, "You must be the lucky man who's going to get to buy this thing." He says, "Wish I could afford it. It's a dream. Why don't you give it a try?" he says.
That's some impressive driving. I hope I can measure up to that. Isaac says as he starts walking towards the wheel.
He's going to give like the briefest description. There are basically like 2 levers and a button. The button turns it on and off, and the levers, like pulling them up and down, makes the wheel go left and right. And he says if you pull them both down, you can do an emergency stop. And if you pull them both up, you get like a thruster boost.
Okay.
So,
Isaac's going to give it a spin, but first he's just going to use the built-in mechanics. He's not going to animate it.
all right.
Cheater.
You are going to see
Next time.
the glowing stone in the back of it begin to like flash.
She puts on her eyepiece and she's seeing if there are any spells or in it.
It is using the stored power inside the crystal. And it's sort of creating this like vacuum inside of the tube. And then it's drawing the power through an engine-like machine in order to get the power to spin the wheel.
Next question. Is there anything different from what was on the blueprints that was shown to me?
Nope, it's an exact copy.
I thought they said they did upgrades.
The upgrades are with the driving mechanism and the shell casing around the top of the wheel to give it extra stability.
Gotcha.
All right. As you get in it, you slowly start, and it does kind of feel fun when you get in, and it sort of starts rolling on its own. And then you sort of begin to pick up speed, and here comes the curve. So you sort of like slowly pull the right lever back and the front lever forward. And the thing starts to like turn slightly to the side, and then it's turning a little too much, so you back off a little bit, and it's like slowly spinning around, and your hair's kind of flying back. And then in maybe 20 seconds, you're through the turns. Very fun to drive, very easy to learn. And do you try to perform anything fancy?
After we go around the next curve, he's going to disengage the engine and then try and animate it. He's going to slow down before he does that, and then he's going to try that.
All right. The moment that you disengage the engine, 2 legs are going to like pop out the side in order to hold the wheel upright. And you have to like take control of the wheel through your fate and like put those back away.
Oh no, I almost
Before-
broke the kickstands.
Yeah. So there's like a as they're dragging on the ground for a second.
This is June, and she's like, "Yeah, there it comes."
The moment you take control of it, you feel this. So when you take control of like a skeleton, there isn't anything happening inside of it. It's just you, right? But you still need to maintain sort of the vacuum of energy inside of it. So you feel like this immense coiled power inside the machine. It would be very easy if you were not like concentrating on this for this thing to just explode.
Okay. That's really funny.
Because you need to maintain mechanical operations inside the machine in order to get the wheel to spin. It won't just spin on its own.
I could like overload the crystal and then it just, okay.
So
You
you're
can run one of them into the giants.
boom.
I'm serious.
So these
Well, if
could
you didn't care much about Dom's soul, you could, throw it, have Harper cut it, and then explode it.
Jesus
Just
Christ.
saying.
You guys are vicious.
We're
All right.
ready to kill.
So you'll think you'll get the use of it.
I can drop
But-
gears on them.
without any noise at all, almost except for the revving, like the wheel itself, like spinning sort of pretty quietly. It's going to begin to just kind of like. And one additional fun thing is all of the safety measures work when it's on, not when it's off. So you can go as fast as you want
Oh, nice.
until it just rips
Alright.
itself apart for speed.
Oh, God. I can't
So
stand
there are
each other.
like speed limiters when it is turned on.
60 feet per turn is the speed limit
Okay.
when it's on. You could probably get it up to 120 before it just tears itself apart.
Yeah. Okay.
You know,
That's
so
good
in
to
an
know.
emergency,
Basically, you can make it go faster for reducing its hit points.
Yeah.
that's kind of
Isaac will
sweet.
park it and then get off and say, June, you want to give it a try?
That I do. June looks down at her dress and goes, and she just kind of shakes her robes, and then it just turns into trousers and a shirt.
June, one interesting aspect about these wheels is it is basically an artificial version of your form.
My form?
Yes, your form is a continuous loop of cyclical magic. That's what the wheel does inside in order to generate power.
Interesting.
Your power is used to create a living life. This power is used to cause forward momentum for a giant wheel.
While she was waiting for him to come back with that, she's going to ask them how they came up with the idea. She's going to specifically talk about the patterns and whatnot.
He says that we got a hold of a prototype engine, apparently sent to Mirbin many years ago and kept in one of his lock rooms. He gave it over because of some fated thing or another to our creator, at least the blueprints, and used that theory in order to craft the wheel.
Any idea who sent it to him originally?
I believe Osiah the Storm Mage.
Interesting. She asks a few more technical questions about like the blueprints and blah blah blah. We don't have to go into it.
Okay, so the
But
wheel,
yes, she wants to go ride it.
as you jump on,
She stops before she does, pulls her hair back into a messy bun, and then stabs a quill through it.
all right, you see that there is a little helmet, like
Not gonna do
holster
it.
up here that you could like put the helmet on with the little glasses.
I'm good.
As you begin to drive, you feel a thrill of excitement coming from the high speeds. It's like you're flying through the flight spell. It's about that fast. And as you rev about the turns, how does June react to the thrilling ride?
Oh, she's probably smiling.
Okay. As you turn it off at the end of your drive, the two little legs are going to come out and stand.
How does it do on bouncy terrain if it has to leave the ground?
Most excellent. It can ride over almost anything, even up some significant degrees of tilt. We have made the energy inside acts like a pull to the magnetic core of Mythia, which is in the center of the planet. So it keeps itself upright almost on anything, except for like a 90-degree curve.
How does it do on sand?
We haven't had a great time to test it on sand terrain, but it should do well at high speeds.
She walks around it a few times. She looks over at Isaac. And how was your experiment?
Better than I imagined. I forgot to check if it can drive in reverse.
It can. But it's
Okay.
about half speed in reverse, but it's pretty easy to do like a 70-degree turn and just flip around.
Are there mirrors?
Yeah, okay.
There are not, but you could just go like that and like look backwards.
I'm putting mirrors on mine. Okay.
I'm putting mirrors on mine.
What?
All right.
Safety first.
So with
or
the
not wanting to turn your head.
prototype, they're going to show you the innards of one of them being still built. So they've got the 6 created, but they're going for additional ones because the tests have been so successful, and they believe that there'll be a big market for these items once they are able to get the manufacturing costs down. Would you like to make the purchase? The guy is going to sort of like, as boldly as possible, try to make the pitch and get the close.
Oh. Yeah, I thought I already signed off with him. Isaac will be like, yes. How soon can you get them to us?
They're ready to go immediately, he says. We have them in
Perfect.
shipping crates if you would like them shipped somewhere within the city.
Isaac will turn to June, get her opinion.
I think they are a worthwhile investment, yes. If you'd like, you can have them shipped directly to the academy.
Okay, Isaac will nod to the salesperson. Let him know to take them to the academy.
All right. As you pull out your pocketbook, the stacks of money that you are going to place down on the table would make a king blush. The man is as happy as you've ever seen anybody for this big break in his career.
So real quick, it's Prongor has my wallet and is handling the money, not Isaac.
All right. So are you like ready to check, or do you have the cash? Like, how is this happening?
Prongor writes out a check, and then Isaac signs it. Isaac doesn't carry around that much money, obviously.
All right.
That'd be
There's
very
a
heavy.
big fancy contract that's signed, and since you're basically all paid up, there's no oath made in order to finish off the debt. You pay 6 with 2 coming from you, right?
Mm-hmm.
6 wealth points.
I guess Yuffie could have helped with that.
Honestly, I assumed that you'd pay him back for your share. I mean, everybody in the group.
You're making
outside
some bold
of-
assumptions there.
I was the only reason June offered to pay for Hero is because out of everyone in the group, he's the only one who can't afford it for themselves.
Very true.
Man, aren't they like a wealth point each?
They are a wealth point each.
Oh.
All right. And with that, the deal is sealed, and we will stop there for the time being, Noble Heroes. And remember, do try this at home. Thank you.